He didn't scream though. Sounds are fun.
Hi, welcome to Spektral Evidence. Tonight, we have a great show lined up for you tonight. Harry and I went down to the Rock and Shock Festival down in Worcester.
Yes, Worcester.
And we met a bunch of guys that, as you can see behind us, do fantastic work. The company's called FRIGHTFUL ACTS, and this is Rob, Joe, and John with no H.
Very good.
Guys, thanks for coming down. Thanks for actually bringing all this down. What got you started?
I actually get asked that a lot. I'd have to say that's from childhood. It's just something I was always meant to do. I think for the most part, everyone here could say when they were a child, their imagination would run from them. I had a really wild imagination, I would say, probably more so than the rest of the kids in the neighborhood. So I was always fascinated with just character designs in general, from different types of, either it be a horror film, a fantasy film, sci-fi. I grew up on Star Wars and all those big films from that time period, and it's just something I always wanted to do, and I always pursued it.
So you were the weird kid in the class?
No, I was more like the cool kid in class because I would draw the stuff that was really cool. But yeah, I was probably the weird one too. They just didn't want to tell me.
Man, I've been doing special effects and makeup for the past 3-4 years up at Canby Lake. Me and Rob have known each other since we were kids. He found out I was doing Canby Lake and figured we could get something going on his experiences and stuff, and we just started going from there. And we found John.
Yeah, and that's when things actually started happening. No, yeah, I was the weird kid in the class, but nobody wanted to tell me because I was also one of the biggest kids in the class. So, but no, I, like Rob, been interested in this stuff since I was little, and my big inspiration, oddly enough, was Superman. And you can't really get that in here, but it's the whole like the sci-fi, the comic book thing, and it sort of took off from there. And funny story, I get a lot of jibes for this. I was told to look up Rob my freshman year at Montserrat. Someone was looking at my stuff in the sculpture class. You need to talk to Rob McLaughlin. He's right up your alley doing this stuff. And I was like, yeah, he's probably one of those weird stoner college kids. I'm not going to bother with that. I know what I'm doing. 4 years later, Rob comes down and finds me. About 5 months later, FRIGHTFUL ACTS
because
happens.
Someone told me, they said, you should talk to John, and I went and did it right away. And we found John. And we had actually just made our first commission, because Joe and I had started, and we had been at it for a few months. I'd say we were only a few months, before
like
we found John, yeah. And it's been about a year now, and we've hit the ground running. We've had a ton of write-ups and reviews. Rock and Shock was a huge hit for us. We've been non-stop since then. We've been on the internet. We have a number of people that are into film and movies now that have been contacting us, and we've been getting a lot of work. And well, of course,
and now you're on
you called us to have us come over, and so we were really excited to be here. So, thanks.
A cheesy cable access.
Yeah.
You've hit the big time. Congratulations.
So, out of all the mass behind me, what's your the favorite of each of you?
Well, we're probably all going to pick the one that we did individually. But for myself, I spent a lot of time over here on this blue one. That was a design of mine that I had been kicking around for some time. A lot of my work that I do currently now goes back to those days when I had that wild imagination as a child before I had to get jobs and go to school and college and take everything seriously. When I just the limits and the freedom I had were there was no limit to them. So a lot of my work, I go back to what I was doing when I was a child. And this is a design that I had probably thought up and I actually sketched out when I was about 14 or 15 or so. And every once in a while, I'll go back to my old designs when I feel like I'm running out of something for some inspiration. And this is probably a 5th or 6th take on that original idea from when I was younger. So, but that one took a lot of time because I don't know if you can see, but there's just a lot of little spirals and a lot of intricacies and stuff that are going on. Yeah, and the horn. The horns drove me nuts. And then the hair punching too, which takes a long time. We do that by hand. We punch each piece of hair in. But that would be mine.
Me, myself, would be the clown.
Shocking.
Yeah.
I saw that coming.
I'm out in Candy Lake. I do Merriman Incorporated, the Clown House, and that's what inspired me to do that. And I just had the design in my head when I started doing it, and I knew what I wanted. And it took me forever to find out the hair and everything. I was searching everywhere for the hair, and finally found out what I wanted to use. Picked that up, and it just, I don't know, it just took off from there. It's just by far my favorite, and so many people, when I have that thing on, it's like a movie star. Everybody wants a picture. You know, it's really good. Rock and Chalk. I mean, every time I put that on, someone wanted a picture. You know, I could not get out of it. Every time I got out of it, someone wanted me to put it back on and take a picture. It was just really good, and I love that one. So great.
Oh, I think I'm going to be a little original here and not pick one that I did. My favorite one has always been the red one, the two red ones you can see over there. Act 1, as we call it. It was the first one that was done. It's always been, in my opinion, when I think Frightful Acts, that's the first thing I see. I just love it. I think it's just like the perfect mascot for the company.
So when you guys come up with a design, do you all butt heads, or is it just, who has the best one, or just how does that come about?
It's basically like you see behind you, like there's 3 different molds.
Yep.
We each get a mold and everybody goes to town. I mean, if one of us needs help, we ask the other, what do you think I should do with this? And we all just collaborate together. And get everything going together, and it helps us all out.
A great portion of the time is spent reeling Robin from overworking things.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, then he'd still be working on Act 1 right now.
I'd be sculpting, pores in the skin.
You get the high-powered microscope out so we can get the amoebas in each little cell.
I would. I get really obsessive when I work. I get really carried away, and it's actually funny. A lot of my college professors, if they were to see this, they'd be laughing. Now, seeing how years later, people are still telling me to hurry up and finish and move on to the next product. No, we always have 3 projects going on at the same time, if not more. And what's great with what we use for our materials, we use plasticine clay, which is an oil-based clay. It doesn't dry. So we actually go into it. We'll have an original idea, but the clay and the material allows you to constantly change it. So it's almost like a 3-dimensional sketch phase. Because normally if you were to sit down and draw, you draw 2-dimensionally. But when it comes to sculpturing and character design, when you're working 3-dimensional, you need to think about the object as a whole. So what might work on a piece of paper in 2-dimensional form isn't going to necessarily work in your 3-dimensional form. because you got to think about, you know, what's going on behind this and what's going on around here. How is this in proportion to the back side or the front side? So we work and we actually just feed off each other. We'll stop every so often, every few hours or something, and say, hey, what do you guys think? And they'll say, Rob, you're getting crazy again. Rip it up, tear it up, throw it away, start over, or, you know, or John, will, you know, he'll ask me how he's doing, and usually he's done sculpting in a night. I don't know how he does it to this day. He just whips through them, yeah, like crazy. Sometimes he's actually working on 2 or 3 to mine and Joe's 1 each. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, we just work. It's a kind of a collaboration. We each have our own idea and our own set path to what we think the end result is going to be, but we stay open to each other, and that's what's great working together in one room, is that, you know, we can catch each other if we're getting a little too crazy, or we can reel each other in if we're getting too far out there, but we help keep each other in check.
The help too, like, you know, like there's plenty of times like I don't know what to do, and I'll ask Rob, I'm like, what do I do? Rob will put it on there for me, and all in clay, then I'll rip it off. I'm like, all right, now do it. You know, like this is what you should do. Rip it off. There you go. Go ahead and do it. You know, and it helps a lot. I mean, like these two, they graduated art school. You know, and you know, I just, you know, came along, you know, and never went to college or anything, but, you know, like, I've always had that artistic talent in me, and it goes to show, you know, it's just a little bit of help, and, you know, I'm very grateful that I found you 2 guys, and, you know, like, I've known Rob for years, you know, but John's my right-hand man, like, you know. Rob, you're a help, but John's the right-hand man.
That's right.
You know, I need help for anything, I go to John first.
Yeah.
I feel so good right now.
Yeah, Joe and I actually go back to about 12 years old or something like that. I was new into his town, and I had moved in and got a paper route, and
I beat you up in paper money.
yeah, no, we're not letting that one go. No, that didn't happen. But yeah, we knew each other as young teens, and we've kept a lot of the same friends. So we've always been around. We've always been bumping into each other at parties and such and stuff like that. So when he started doing his special effects work at an amusement park, and I actually was in the middle of putting my work together as a senior, getting ready to graduate college, and this is what I spent my entire seminar on, and my senior thesis was on character design in 3-dimensional forms. All of our friends were like, you guys got to get together, you guys got to get together. So we did, and yeah, we've been hitting there. We've been doing good since. And then, oh yeah, John came too. I think we already covered that.
So, like, let's say someone has an idea of their own.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are willing to take that on, and
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
it's not just your own designs. It's you'll
Yep.
work with somebody. And
Yeah, we accept commissions.
Yeah. It might be a little more than the 3 to 5 what we're asking, but it's, I mean, it depends upon how complicated the design is. So.
Yeah, we'll take special you know, projects, commissions, special requests of any kind, and it's not even limited to masks too. We could do costume work, body work. We don't deal just in silicone rubber, but we deal with plastics and resins and everything else as well. But with special projects, it calls for more materials because you have to actually make special molds for those designs. So it usually involves a little bit more money. We're not actually really trying to get rich. We just want to make a living at it. So.
Well, it sounds like you guys are off to a good start. I mean,
Yeah, we actually wrote on the wall, this might sound kind of funny, and this is the honest to God truth. A year ago, we actually wrote on the wall when we all got together, and it looked like we were really onto something. We actually wrote on the wall in the basement, it says, "Where are you a year from today?" And that was a year ago.
And we only had one done. We only had the first mask done.
And
Act 1.
yeah, I would have never in 1 year, if you had asked me a year ago, where would you be at that 1 year mark, I would have never have told you that half of the stuff that we had done would be, you know, done or behind us. But we've accomplished more than I ever thought we would in just 1 year's time. You know, we've been just generating tons of excitement, and we're just going on for the ride. So it's been pretty good to us so far.
Hey, all right, how about that? Have you ever been working on something, you know, you got like, I don't know, days in on it, and then you just be like, you know what, I hate this.
Yeah, I'd have to say so. Actually, we just recently did that. It actually killed me when he did it. John just did it the other day. The one you know the one he was sculpting at the Rock and Chalk convention?
Yep.
He destroyed it right after we got back.
Yeah, but I think the new product's better. I think that's what he was doing. A lot better than what he was doing.
I liked the one at the Rock and Chalk.
No, I wasn't happy with that one, but I think that one's better.
See, actually, yeah, I remember watching you sculpt at the Rock and Chalk, and you were just whizzing right through it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Like, I'll sit down and then like I'll have like with me when it comes to working, if I'm not feeling it, it doesn't happen. So when I'm feeling it, I sit down and I just work out all my energy until it's gone, and usually that results in a finished product in a time period that apparently isn't good enough for Rob. So
No rushing.
So sometimes, I mean, like with the thing I did at Rocket Chalk, I wasn't expecting to save it. It was more of just, I was just doing a demo just, you know, just for entertainment purposes or whatever. But by the time I left the convention, I was like, I really want to mold this thing. And then we got home, and then I wasn't feeling it anymore, and decided to put it to bed.
so, Rob aside, how long does it usually take you to do a completed mold? A sculpture?
The completed sculpture?
Sculpture, yeah.
Depending on how I'm feeling it, I could probably bang one out in a day or two.
That's incredible. That really is.
But
I mean, when you get to see these up close, the detail is...
It's amazing.
It is. And to be able to just sculpt that out in a day, that's really amazing.
It all depends on the artist too. I mean, like, you know, like it takes me a little longer than these two. Like Rob again details everything till the last breath. You know, like he'll detail everything. John very fast and good. Like what you do is great. You know, me it takes me a little longer. You know, but I think you know it took me what a month, 2 sculpting.
For the first one, yeah.
For the first one, the second one, about the same amount of time, about a month or so. But usually about like, you know, it's about a month sculpting, and then everything after that, it just kind of flows. Sculpting's the longest part. So.
Now, when you were setting up, I was going around and I was not being creepy, but I was feeling the masks. And it's silicone. It's not latex like you think of old Friday the 13th movies.
Right.
It's, what I was surprised with was not only the texture of the feel, but actually how thick they are. Now, is that like do you shoot for a standard thickness, or is that?
We've been playing around with what our standard thickness should be. We've actually had requests by people to make them thicker because they wanted to use them for commercial use. So we would make them thicker just because of commercial use. They would be subject to tear and wear. And all that, and a lot of the other silicone mask companies that you would find out there tend to do this really, really, really thin because they want to capture as much emotion in the mask as possible. But one of the biggest complaints is that they're always tearing. So we actually want to go thicker than what the norm suggests, because we look at each one of these as a piece of artwork. Somebody that buys these from us might not necessarily look at it like that, because they look at it like they're buying just a product, a Halloween mask, and it is what it is. But we take a lot of pride in it because each and every one of our masks are handmade. So we actually will go thicker. And we find that if you do go a little bit thicker, it actually fits to your head that much better because you're eating up the space. So that when you put it on and you're moving your mouth and you can capture some expression, it might not capture you wrinkling your forehead, but we like to believe that our customers are happier that they're not getting products that are going to be damaged in a year or two from wearing them and stuff like that. So
We have found out though, like there's one of them we did really thin. When you put it on, you can like grasp the forehead movement and everything, like the wrinkles in the forehead, and it looks really good. But it's so thin that it will, it will tear. And it's for parks and anything like that, commercial use, you can tell it's gonna rip. And the thicker it is, the more secure you are with, not a damaged product and have to repair it. And, like we're very good on our repairs too. Anything that we have sold or have done, we repair, no cost, just to get the product out there and keep everybody happy.
Now, the tearing aside, does the silicone dry out like the latex?
No.
Old latex masks used to do?
Nope. No, silicone has a standard shelf life of 10 years. And like the one in the back there on the back left, that is, it's lived beyond that.
Yeah.
So no, this stuff isn't gonna like turn brittle and like turn orange like the latex does and fall apart. No.
Crack and rip and tear.
So you can just repair a tear, and it's just as strong as it was.
That's the beauty about silicone rubber and what the mask's are made out of. We could take one right now that's been finished for a long time, like say this one here, who's about a year old, maybe a little longer. We could take a knife right to him, slash him, and then just take a little bit of silicone rubber, the exact same silicone rubber that he's made out of, and just put it on the edges, put it back together, blow dry it, and you would never know.
Wow.
And it would perform, and it wouldn't even compromise its performance or anything. Yeah.
So, you get a sculpture done. What's your next step?
Nightmare. Potential nightmare.
The long
business. You're in the business of nightmares.
Yes, well, the long part,
Oddly
the long
enough.
part of the process.
No, it's you can think of it as like an assembly line sort of thing. The sculpting part is, I think, all of our favorite parts, because that's when you get to have fun with it. And then once you move on to the molding stage is when you get into the technicalities of mixing ratios of parts of A and part B of a product, and getting the exact amount right, and if you don't, it won't solidify, and then you'll have the nightmares. And when you have to go back in, and because if you screw up the molding process, then
You've wasted your time.
you've wasted this, because you usually can't recover the sculpture. But all that
So
aside,
you actually destroy the sculpture when
Yes.
you're removing it from the mold.
you do. That aside, once
That's
the
part of the
sculpture's done, you do the rubber mold,
Yeah.
and then you make a mother mold over that. So there's 2 steps in the molding process. And then you remove both of the molds from the original sculpture, take the sculpture out, put the mold back together, and then you can cast, which is when you make the mask. And then painting comes after that.
So basically, after a week of sculpting, you get a week of molding and all that other stuff, and then probably a day or 2 of casting before you can even pull it out and begin hand painting it. The beauty about making the molds of your sculptures is that this long process that we're describing is only to make the original. Once that original is made, you never have to go through that entire process again. So you could actually, somebody could call us and say, hey, I really like this Act 1 mask here. Can I have it? We don't have to sculpt it and mold it and all that other stuff.
Right.
We already have it, so all we have to do is just pour the material in, cast it, pull it out. So basically, your original will take you 2 weeks from beginning to finish, but a reproduction of the mold that you already have is only going to take 2 days, 3 days. So, and you pull it out and you're done.
Now, when you you have it all casted, you have the mold around it, you got to pull all that out. There's a lot of nooks and crannies in there. How hard is it to get the clay out of it? I mean, is there
Not very hard at all.
really?
No, because our molding material is also a silicone rubber, so it stretches. So you have this clay object that's got all these intricate, ins and outs and everything, and all that detail. But because the mold itself is silicone rubber, all you do is stretch it and pop it right off. Sometimes, depending on what the sculpture is, for instance, like the blue one here with the horns, you're going to lose the horns when you're taking it apart. They're going to get stuck in there, and when you rip it off, the horns are still going to be in there. You'll have to go in and fish them out. But the clay that we use is a non-drying clay, so we don't actually, whenever we sculpt these, we're not anticipating on keeping the sculpture because we want to get to the next sculpture and have the next design made. So sometimes it's a little bittersweet. It's like if I have one that I spend like a week and a half on to sit and destroy it, but I know I got the mold, and someday when I cast it, you know, I'll have my product that I really wanted.
So what do you actually make the mold out of? Is the mold silicone?
The mold is silicone.
And, all right, what's silicone like before it's dry in a mask? Is it like a paste, or is it?
It's like a
syrup.
Yeah, it's very syrupy. It comes in part A and part B. When you mix it to, the chemical reaction takes place for it to solidify into a solid.
And how long does it take for it to?
Depending on the material, they all have different cure times. And it's important to make sure that you know which one you're working with, so that when you go to actually make your mold, you don't say, oh yeah, this is the one that we've got like good 30, 40 minutes on, right? But no, it's the one that cures in 12 minutes. And then you get all this waste if you're not, you know, paying attention.
Yeah, and then, but we do have two phases to our mold. And one of them is the silicone rubber mold like we had just described to you.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we will do a hard shell. This hard shell is literally so that when we're pouring and casting, it will keep its shape and not deform on us. But yeah, you'd have the sculpture down here. It doesn't have any clay on it right now. Mm-hmm. It's just a plaster bust of actually Joe's head. All of our masks, by the way, are all custom made to Joe's head. We molded his face and his head. And we sanded it down and trimmed off a little of his big head in the back.
Just a little bit.
So this would actually have the clay on it. You can see we still have some pieces of clay on here now. We would put this rubber on. This is the rubber we were just talking about. And we would completely cover the sculpture with it. You're going to do 2 or 3 layers of this rubber. And it takes about an hour to dry each layer. Sometimes longer. And then we would put the trowelable lightweight plastic over it. But we do this in 2 pieces. We would actually do the back. We have to divide it in half and do the back. And you kind of build like a little bit of a wall with clay, and you go right up to it. And then after that's dry in the back, you would take the clay off, put Vaseline around the edge, so that when you do the front half, which you would trowel on, it's not going to stick to the back half, so that you get the 2 halves. And then what you would do is, after that was done, is you would take this hard shell off, and you take the rubber off, and then destroy your sculpture underneath, and take it all apart, and take the head apart. And what you would get is, actually we can do this now. So this would be your sculpture, and
It's not the lightweight one.
so this would be your sculpture. It would be completely ruined, and all you would have is these 2 hard shell pieces with your lightweight rubber mold, and then all you would have to do is put it back together. Again, if you were to not use this hard shell, it's strictly there just to keep its shape. It's not there to capture the detail. As you can see here, all the details inside. It's all caught. And what you would do is you put it back together. And what you have there is a hollow of your sculpture. And this is where we pour the silicone rubber that is actually going to make the mask.
So you just pour it in, swish it around?
And slush it out, yep.
And just keep repeating it?
And you keep repeating the phases. That part of the process. There are.
So do you put Vaseline in there to keep the silicone from sticking to the silicone, or will it not stick like that?
No, that's that was a good catch on your part. I'd hate someone to be following this and try to make a mask. You do need a release agent at that phase. When this is hollow, before you put your silicone rubber in that you're going to actually make a mask out of, you got to get that release agent in. And we found that Vaseline.
There are many different kinds you can use. There's a lot of different kinds. That's, you know, like if anybody's to do this, use your own, what you think is best, but that's one of the tricks of the trade.
When you guys were first learning, did you ever like miss a spot
Oh yeah.
and then destroy?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I had my very first attempt ever at using the products that we use. I literally, these gallons of stuff that you buy, they're about $200 a gallon.
Yeah.
I used an entire gallon of this orange rubber here and molded one of my sculptures, which was about $200 there. And then I slushed in another gallon of the other silicone rubber without a release agent. So I lost $400 in a night just like that. That was my first attempt ever. And I don't know how, but that didn't scare me away from it. Normally, most people would have just turned away and said, "That's it, I'm done."
Yeah, but after you've gone that far, it's already in your blood now. You're like, I got to.
Well, exactly. That's it. Yeah, but I did it. I lost two full gallons in one.
So really, anytime along the process, you make one mistake, all your work is gone.
Right.
And now, you don't have a mold for Act 1 anymore. That got destroyed when you made
The sculpture.
the sculpture.
The sculpture is gone. Yeah.
So what would ever happen if something happened to that? Would you
We'd have to redo it.
you would totally you can't take an old
So you
another
only have
mask?
one.
No. Yeah.
That's correct. Yep. We only have the one. I mean, we could always resculpt it, but if there are ways around it without having to resculpt it, and I wouldn't advise that anyone just try it because after years you kind of learn different tricks and techniques and you start getting into advanced stuff. But we would actually be able to use one of our old masks and use that and mold it. But there would be a lot of other stuff that would have to happen to make that happen. A lot of technical stuff on our end, with really thinking things through, and there'd be a lot of problem solving involved. But we have actually used a mask to make another mold. We have done it in the past, and that's what would have to happen. It takes a long time. You're better off really just resculpting the thing. But once you sculpt something and then you go to sculpt it again, it's never exact.
Yeah.
So if it's something that you want to be exactly the same, you'd have to go through hell to remold it. Otherwise, you just try to do the best you can and resculpt it and get as close as you can. But that would, yeah. There's a lot of other things too. When we're talking about molding and this hard shell stuff, there are a lot of things that people don't think of. Very technical stuff. There's like terms like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like mechanical locking when you're talking about molding and stuff. It's where you have a lot of undercuts, overcuts, and material going in different directions. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this would be to say you have a really large ball, right? And then you have a very small stem. And you were to put that rubber and material all over it. A lot of times what mechanical locking would be is if you were to try to then take that ball and the stick out of the rubber molding and the hard shell, it's going to be locked in there. So sometimes you have to actually cut. And then when you go to casting, depending on how your material is moving around, you actually have undercuts and overcuts in certain masks where, like for instance, this guy with the shell, he's got areas that are reaching down, other areas that are reaching up, all at the same time. So when your material, when you're slushing, let's say I had the hard shell and the rubber of this green mask that has a lot of complicated angles, the material's in here, and as I slush it around, there are pockets of air going this way and that way and this way and that way, and you actually need to make sure you capture each and every one of them and you get the air pockets out. So the casting in itself, earlier when John mentioned It's the hell phase, or what did you call it?
Nightmare.
The nightmare phase. He wasn't joking, because this is molding and casting alone is an art in itself.
No, wow.
Past the sculpting phase. There are actually a lot of people out there that actually do just this for a living, is molding and casting, and that's all they do, and they're considered experts in it. But like I said, it's an art in itself, and it's taken us years to figure it out.
Now,
But we're in a good place.
back when I was in high school and everything, you know, you're always into the horror movies, and I've read the books, you know, the old books and everything, Tom Savini, all that. They never had, did they use latex to make the molds like you guys do? Or did it, I know, I remember just seeing a bunch of plastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the cheap way to do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that really cut back on the detail that they could do back then,
Right.
right? Because they didn't have the flexibility of the silicone. Now, here's another question about silicone to latex. Any allergies to silicone? Anybody? Is that ever?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't come across anyone yet that has any allergies to silicone rubber.
I've come across a lot that are allergic to latex, and compared to the silicone, like even the same people
Yeah.
are fine with the silicone and not with the latex.
So it's good news for people with latex allergies. Yeah. Halloween's back. Yeah, no, the special effects field and character designing and all that has made leaps and bounds, just like film has since its beginning. When they first come out, you don't want to say that they didn't know what they were doing. It just hadn't developed yet.
Yeah, it had to evolve.
Right, and that's exactly what the special effects and costuming and all that has done. It's moved right along with film.
And now they're all killing it with CGI.
Yes,
Right.
I
It's
agree.
like in the 1989 Batman. You know, when Michael Keaton was Batman and he had, you know, like, Joker was on his left, he had to move his whole body in order to fight the Joker. And now that you get the movie come a couple years ago, you know, now he can move his head.
Yeah.
So it's like they like this part of the special effects evolves along with while the computer stuff is going too. So it's
They're just like anything else, and everything else that we have been talking about. There are so many different methods to hair punching and accessorizing these types of products. But there was one technique that I found on the web after, I can't even tell you how long I was looking up different techniques and stuff to hair punch. I actually found a woman that had a little demo where she was using like a needle. And there was a particular way that you use the needle, but she basically punches each piece in one at a time. And she used like synthetic hair or something like that. It was fake. But I took it one step further, and what we do actually is we go to taxidermist shops and fly fishing stores, anywhere that you're gonna find fake or real animal hair or leathers or you name it. I mean, whatever it is that you're actually looking for. And I actually sometimes I'll use the real animal stuff. For instance, this one way up in the corner there, the bird dragon looking thing. He actually has real porcupine quills. The hair that's coming out and kind of the whispers or the whiskers or whatever that's on the sides there, coming off his chin and his cheeks is yak hair, and with a couple goose down feathers put in. This blue guy here, the eyebrows and the kind of the chin hair there, that's from a deer, the tail of a deer, and as well up here. But then
And the clown.
And then the clown, yeah.
That was a broom. I was searching for a long time to find out what I knew that I wanted something that stood up, that I wouldn't have to put chemicals or anything in to make stand up, and a broom was the best option. I was looking for green, and I found it. Just made it work.
Now, what holds the hair in, though? Got a trade
Silicone.
secret?
no, silicone rubber.
Silicone.
Everything is silicone rubber.
But I mean, like,
Dip it in and Push it through.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
That's it? You just put a little silicone on it? You don't have to tie a little knot at the end or anything so it don't pop out or anything like that?
Kind of goes back to what we were talking about when there's a tear in the mask. The silicone rubber will adhere to itself. So what you can actually do with the hair is once you're punching it in, either you could dip the needle in when you're going to punch the hair in the silicone rubber and then put it in, and you got silicone rubber on the tip of the hair into silicone rubber. It's going to bond to itself. But what's going to happen more often than not is you're actually going to punch the hair through the entire layer of the mask, so you're going to get a little bit of it on the other side. And once that happens, all you're going to do is grab a little bit of silicone rubber and brush the inside of the mask where the hair is sticking through. And it's going to bond. It's going to bond to itself, and it'll be there, and you can pull on it. I mean, just like anybody's hair, if you pull hard enough, it's going to come out.
Don't look at me. It's the lights that make me look this bald.
But yeah, no, but it'll stay.
I was thinking maybe that'll work.
Oh, you know? What do you think? It's not like you're allergic, no allergies to the silicone. That would be cool.
All right, you can do some brooms.
You want a mohawk?
all right, the broom bristles on the broom. You don't feel those sticking into your head when you put it on?
No, because I put a layer, I mean, when I first did it, you could, but then I put a layer of silicone on the inside. Just painted it with a brush. Just paint the inside, let it dry. No, you cannot feel it.
Cool.
The only downfall about silicone rubber masks is they weigh a lot more than the other masks. I would say probably times three,
Yeah.
3 times the weight of latex. And that's really the only downfall. But you look amazing, right?
Yeah, I've actually seen them in it. It's pretty
I
neat.
wear them for 8 hours a night sometimes. There was a couple of warm nights in October that I was wearing that. I had to get out of it, you know, just because I felt the pools of sweat. I mean, it's hot. I'm running around, you know, like, of course, but if you're not running around, you take your time, relax, you know, you're not going to sweat as much, but it does get hot. And, I mean, that's just with any mask, even latex, you're going to get hot and sweat inside, you know, there's no way around it.
Now, what about, like, actual, like, do you guys do, like, prosthetic pieces that people can actually glue on, or is that, like, is that a thing of the
That's not a dead art.
No, that's something that actually John gets more into that
Yeah.
out of the 3 of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same exact idea, just on a different scale.
Yeah.
And this stuff necessarily isn't toxic. I mean, you can't eat it, but I mean, silicone will stick to you, and you can use that. I mean, you wouldn't want to use something that has one of the shorter curing times, so that you're not sitting there for like 45 minutes, not smiling or anything, waiting for it to dry. But silicone appliances is definitely the direction that these things are moved into from latex, just because of how much more expression happens. Like, you could, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. You could sit in 4 hours of makeup, getting these different appliances on and blending it with the makeup and all that stuff, or you could get a mask that will also capture your facial expression, and then you just whoop, put it on in like 10 seconds. So I mean, it depends on what the purpose is and what direction you want to go in. But yeah, we can do that stuff too.
So, like, if it was a full face, you'd go with a mask. If it's a little
wound or
something,
Something like that.
And you would use actual silicone to
you could use that. Yeah.
One of the things that's really fun is when we've been working all night, working with the silicone rubber, is going home and literally picking all the silicone rubber off the hair of your arms. It takes hours,
Or
and
your
it's
head.
painful. Yeah, or your head. This stuff's messy. It gets everywhere when you use it.
Yeah.
I don't know how or why it happens. And no matter how neat you try to be, it ends up everywhere all the time. Pretty much everything you use for the silicone, like when we're working on the masks and stuff, the brushes that we use, it's only a one-shot deal. Because we literally go through hundreds of disposable brushes, because once that silicone rubber solidifies, you know, it's like, it's worse than paint. you know, because it stretches and it stays there. It's adhesive, and you literally just got to throw everything away that you're using constantly. We go through rolls and rolls and rolls of paper towels, rolls and rolls of disposable brushes. What else? I mean, I don't. Yeah, and then the pigments that we use are the same way, because we can actually tint the silicone rubber too.
Well, that's right. You actually airbrush with silicone. You colorize the silicone, and that's what you actually paint the masks with.
Yep. Correct. Yeah, the place that we actually get all our products from, and other places too, they sell it. They're on the web. You just gotta, you can Google it, and you'll find all these different distributors and stuff. But that's the beauty. Another beauty about silicone rubber is they sell the pigments for it, and they actually sell small like bottles of the silicone rubber. They have different names for it, but it's basically silicone rubber, and it adheres to the silicone rubber and remains stretchy, just like the rubber itself. So you could grab any one of these masks right now and pull it, and the paint pulls with it. It's actually silicone rubber, but it's just pigmented. Latex, when you paint latex, there's correct me if I'm wrong, but there's fumes and everything involved with painting latex.
It depends on what paint you use, but yeah, that's definitely a potential.
So the silicone is thin enough to go through an airbrush, as is?
Well, we thin it down. We dilute it. We dilute it with any number of thinners that you can get, paint thinners and stuff like that.
And that doesn't affect the mask itself while you're painting it? Doesn't?
No.
Nope. Because it evaporates right out of the mixture once it's. I mean, it stays, mixed in while it's in the brush, but once it's
out, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Harry, you haven't said anything in like an hour.
I'm just amazed.
No? So Act 1 was the first one, or was the second one?
Act 2.
That was good, John. Act 3 was after that one. Which one is it? Which one's that?
The blue one.
The blue one, yeah.
Oh, no, the clown, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. That's right. And then the blue one.
Then the blue one's Act 3.
So do any of them actually have a name
No.
besides
No.
Act?
No.
No, and it's entirely intentional on our part.
Yeah.
Our website, when you're on it, actually has, the name itself is Frightful Acts.
Yeah.
ACTS as in acts. But on the website, we actually have an old theater setting. So it's kind of like acting in theater, old horror theater. But one of the things you don't want to do when you're designing characters is there's a lot of power in a name. Once you lock down a character or a particular character design with a name, you're going to lead the public or the people that are looking at your products in a particular direction. And when you're trying to sell your products, you don't want to lock them into interpreting it a particular way. You want them to interpret it the way that they want to interpret it. So, for instance, this red one here, it was odd that you said when we were talking earlier that it looked like a scarecrow, which is what my intentions were when I sculpted it. But a lot of people haven't picked that up, and they look at it as this red, scary, mass-murdering thing from another planet. But had I told them that it was a scarecrow, and they don't like scarecrows, they could interpret it in a way that would turn them off from it, so to speak. So by naming them Act 1, Act 2, and keeping with our theater theme, with our website, everything is open to self-interpretation. So everyone can look at them and take them for what they are, for what they want them to be. And people seem to be enjoying that.
See, I got to say that's my favorite. But I got to tell you, that one's a close second, and that's not even done yet. So that one might take it when it's done. I got to tell you, this has been like my favorite episode so far that we've filmed. I mean, I could listen to you guys talk all night about this, but unfortunately we're out of time. And I just want to say thank you. You guys really went above and beyond bringing all the stuff. These guys came from Beverly, Mass, all the way up here
Yes,
for this
thank you.
episode. And, that's just crazy.
Well, thanks for
on
having
your
us.
part.
Thanks for having us. It's been a lot of fun.
And your website is,
www.frightfulacts.com.
and they can contact you right through that. And if anybody wants to purchase one of these or a design of their own, you guys are up for it.
178143 mask is the number.
Wow, they even got their own number.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is
All
cool.
right. Well, once again, thank you guys.
Yes,
we really
thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.